It's 6:05 p.m. on Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026. I am calling order the regular monthly board meeting of Board of Trustees meeting of the John Jermain Memorial Library. So tonight is a special night because we have a row of distinguished guests behind us. I'm going to start the meeting with a period for public expression. So that means anybody who is sitting in the public, anybody back there, if you have any questions or comments, you can identify yourself with your address and make your comments. Not a requirement, but that's the procedure for the meetings. Okay?
And there's another period of public expression.
Yes, at the end of the meeting, sir. All righty. So why don't we move on to the reason why you are all here in the back row, which is the presentation of the Pathway to Success Scholarship. This is our executive director, if you haven't met her, Kelly Harris, and she's going to give you your award.
I'm gonna have you take some photos if that's okay, Wanda. And we'll do a couple of big check photos at the end. Okay. So, as Diane said, my name is Kelly Harris. I'm the executive director here at the John Jermain Memorial Library. And I am excited to present you all with big checks. I think you all got your actual checks, which can be cashed by the bank. These are really just more to, I guess, hang in your house for our Pathway to Success Scholarship recipients. The committee met to review the applications in June and decided to award 3 scholarships, each in the amount of $3,600 to our 3 recipients who are here today. Thomas Little, Alexandra McLaughlin, and Karen Sperling. This scholarship is made possible by a generous donation from Robert Hook. Robert emailed me this morning. He had anticipated being here and something came up and he could not be here. He is sorry to miss it, but he is very excited that you are all receiving the scholarship fund. Let's see. So we'll start with the handing off with the giant check. In alphabetical order, Thomas Little is our first recipient. He will be attending Touro University's Diagnostic Medical Imaging Program in New York City this fall. Giant check. I'll let Diane hand it off.
I had him as a student when he was 4th grade, and I remember his brilliant creative writing and magnificent illustration.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our second recipient is Alexandra McLaughlin, who is attending the Waldorf Handwork Teacher Training Program at the Fiber Craft Studio in Spring Valley.
Okay. Wow. You're welcome. Congratulations.
And our third recipient is Karen Sperling, who is using the funds for a career change. She is taking advanced yoga teacher training with Yoga Shanti.
Congratulations. Thank you.
So all 3 of our recipients really embody the spirit of this scholarship, showing that our pathways to success are not linear, but rather meander and twist as we live our lives and we go through life. So congratulations again, and we look forward to following up with you on your successes and your educational journeys. So thank you all for taking the time to apply and for coming today and picking up your big checks, and we'll take some photos too. Thank you so much. So I'm thinking maybe we could all maybe stand against this wooden cabinet, might be a little nicer than the maximum occupancy sign. on the other side.
Are we exceeding it?
If we can have the board stand with the recipients, that would be great. And we'll do one photo of everyone together. That works. One big happy photo. You guys. So we'll put Thomas, Karen, and Alex. All right, all the trustees can't be on one side. I need one more trustee on this side, maybe. Yes.
Are we too wide?
You're not necessarily,
Too wide.
we might be too wide. It does look like a lineup. Maybe if we could stand like from, yes, a little sideways. Or some people could sit, that could work too.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna lose somebody's purpose.
Maybe the.
Maybe we could have a taste. Alright,
Maybe the recipients sit down.
that would be good. I mean, thank you. How does that sound? What do we want to do with the person?
More center.
Okay.
Yeah, we should
Yeah,
I'll stand over.
Scroll.
Right.
You're gonna do I need somebody else on this side. Okay, so I need someone else on this side. Oh, hold on, let me take off my airline stewardess jacket. We have the table in it too. Do we want to pull the table forward? That doesn't matter.
Well, push it. You mean, push it.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. That's good. Here we go. Everybody smiling. Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
They said one
Alright,
day
great.
I did a pose for a picture, and when someone said pose for a picture.
Picture.
Hey, I'm very candid, he said, stand there and pose for the picture, all of a sudden I said.
Your jacket's right.
Okay,
That was good.
so scholarship recipients, if you want to spend your evening here, sit in the back row, but you are. Go have fun with your checks.
Checks.
I will send you all copies of the photo. Like I said, you can go back and review our annual audit. Or you can run away and have
I'll
dinner.
pass it back.
I don't want this is. Yeah, yeah.
You know how very nice. There's the times there, right there.
So good.
Thank you.
Balance.
Free chocolate M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, birthday to you with my popcorn.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you all. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Who would bring their kids to see that county? They could be brought up on charges.
All right.
Well, we told everyone you were coming.
Yeah.
Do you have anyone on Zoom?
What's over
Me?
there?
We do not.
Okay, so we can continue?
We can continue.
Okay, now we are moving on to the audit for the year 2025 by Al Costa. Baldessari and Costa.
Double speed, you know what? Let me hand these out to everyone. So maybe just take them and pass them around. This is the management letter. Great. Thank you.
Pass.
Just pass one down.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then Emily gets extra. She also gets the bill and the tax return. That's the one. Thank you.
But I have to have somebody sign it.
That was, I think, already sent to you and I emailed the authorization that you filed. That doesn't have to be signed. That's just your copy.
And that has to be signed by Megan, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, this should be, I sent that earlier and we filed.
Did I print it? Not for print? Absolutely. But I'll do that
But
tonight.
there's no rush, that's okay.
You know where to find me.
Okay, so in the loosely stapled letter, that's where we make our internal control recommendations. We look at your cash disbursements, your cash receipts, your payroll, we check out the policies and the procedures, and we really didn't have any recommendations to make. The only item that's in the management letter is the mandatory disclosure that we prepared the financial statement and conducted the audit. Okay, so we have to let you know that. As far as the bound report goes, the most important pages are 3 and 4. Okay, you have the independent auditor's report. You got the best report that you could get. It says that everything is materially accurate and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So congratulations on that. Okay. Page 5 explains how to read the report. Page 6 is just a comparison of numbers from one year to the next. So I think you can look at that on your own. Page 7, 8, and 9 are a whole bunch of financial highlights for people who don't like numbers. You can check those out and get an idea of what's happening. And I'll try to touch on some of the important stats as we go through the report. Okay, so the first page with numbers is page 10. Here we're looking at a balance sheet. If you remember from prior years, a balance sheet is a snapshot in time, specifically December 31, 2025. And what we see on the top third of the page are all the good things that you owned as the library on that date. In the middle of the page are the liabilities, which are the debt that you have. And then your net worth is the bottom section called fund balance. So your most significant asset, or I should say the one that we probably worry most about, is cash and cash equivalents. You had $1,584,000. And then you had investments as well, if you look a few lines down, totaling over 2 million, and that was primarily made of certificates of deposit and US Treasuries. So your money was well invested. Very little of it was in non-interest bearing accounts. All of it was invested, which was great. The only slight flaw, if we could get it fixed, and I'm not saying you need to, was there was about $86,000 that was not insured for FDIC purposes. That was the money in the Fidelity account. So that's the only money that was maybe at risk. Not that I expect the money market fund to go out of business. Other assets that we have include some prepaid expenses, things we've paid for but not used yet. The right to use assets represents the equipment that we're leasing. And then our capital assets is our building improvements, furniture, equipment, and those kinds of things. So lots of good stuff.
So that number there includes the value of the building itself?
Not the fair market value of the building. So everything, accountants aren't appraisers. So what's in there is the cost of the building minus depreciation.
Okay.
So if you bought a computer 10 years ago, you know, at $2,000, or I should say the building, if you bought the building 30 years ago at 100,000, that's what it would be listed for, not fair market value.
Gotcha.
Liabilities are the debts we have. So we had accounts payable, which are unpaid invoices laying around. We had accrued payroll, which are days our employees worked in December, but we didn't pay them until January. Not that we were holding out on them. That's just the way the payroll cycle fell. And then we had our mortgage payable, which you're familiar with, and our lease liability. Okay. So the difference between the two is our net worth. Okay. So fund balance, our net worth of our general fund was in total $3,712,000. Broken down to several different categories. Of that amount of net worth, 45,000 was not available to be spent, and it's in the non-spendable row. That's because it was already spent and tied up in those prepaid assets. We had restricted for specific purposes, and there's a footnote in the back of the report that identifies what that money has to be spent on, things like scholarships and things like that. We had money that the board has earmarked for capital improvements of $3 million. And then we have our rainy day money called unassigned that's used for cash flow purposes. So overall, this is a very good looking balance sheet. It shows that you're financially stable. If you go to page 11, you'll see what we call a statement of activities, or what I would call a P&L, profit and loss. This statement is nice to look at, but it's consolidated and a lot of things are summarized. And since you only have one fund, we can actually look at all the same numbers in the back of the report. So if you go to page 22, you'll see all the general fund numbers broken down in more detail in comparison to budget, which will let us, see what some of our significant budget variances were, and I'll try to offer some color on that. So our major revenue item at the top of the page is taxes and tax-related items. So we had tax revenues both for regular taxes and also for our debt service. And we also include in that section payment in lieu of taxes. So in total, we budgeted $3,373,000, and that's almost exactly what we received, $3,374,000. So really no variance in that area. As far as operating revenues go, you can see that one of the larger variances is the first line there, gifts and donations. We only budgeted 19,800, but we collected 368,000. So we killed it there, primarily due to the success of the annual appeal, but also two large estate bequests that we received really made a big impact. We also did great on our investment income. We had budgeted only 83,600. We collected 165,000, so 82,000 better than anticipated, due to the higher rates and having more cash available on hand to invest due to delays in the HVAC project. Refund of prior year expenses we didn't budget for. We didn't anticipate anything. That was really due to the money that we collected there. 13,000 was safety dividends on our insurance policy and the rebate that we received from PSE&G on the LED lighting. So that was a nice little perk we got there. Okay, so overall, our revenues were better than anticipated. If you look at the bottom of page 22, you'll see our most significant expense category, and that's salaries and benefits. The first line there, salaries, we budgeted 1,295,000. We spent 1,258,000. So a really good job budgeting there.
Is that different because we've had salary increases or new employees come in?
Yeah, you always have, you don't know the hours that your part-timers are going to work, right? And then you have people who are resigning or, leaving, separating from service. And then there's usually a gap in time before replacements can be found. So only a $36,000 variance is a really good job. Normally libraries have a much bigger variance than that. As far as health insurance goes, we were underspent by 91,000 on that line. Again, premiums were a lot less than what we had anticipated. So that was nice, but we also had some employees. We budgeted for one employee to have health insurance, but they didn't opt for coverage. So we saved, some money there, things like that. As far as things like retirement go, that's another thing where we kind of have an idea of what people's salaries are, and we know how much we're going to be giving them. But because we had some eligible employees separate from service, we didn't have to give them the retirement. And when we hire the replacement, they have to be here 6 months before we give them any benefits. So we were able to save some money there. If you go to page 23, you'll see the library materials and programs section on top. Really did a good job budgeting here. A lot of smaller variances, but things like books for adult and reference on the first line was underspent by 5,000 because we had some supply chain disruptions. As you know, a major book vendor went out of business. And then things for like books in the history room, we only buy for the history room when we find something that's of importance or special, and we didn't identify anything to purchase this year. So we were able to save some money there. Digital books was underspent by $31,000, but spending on that really is dictated by SCLS, and they've slowed purchasing. So we didn't have as many things to buy from them. And then when you get down to the archivals, software and supplies and programs, you can see those were grossly, overspent. But it was the library's decision to use that money that we had received for gifts and donations to spend on those items. So just like we had the favorable variance on the revenue side, we had the unfavorable variance here. If you look at the library operations section, a lot of little variances here. I'll point out that we didn't budget anything for that third line, computer peripherals, minor furniture and equipment, or should I say you did budget for it, but it's in the capital outlay section. Accountants, if it's not an asset that's going to be depreciated, has to put it in operations. So the portion of the things that you purchased that were under your capital limit, we moved to this section. Okay. Other things that you'll see there, things like newsletter printing and postage was underspent by $11,800 because we reduced the number of copies printed. Travel and professional development was very much underspent by $10,800 because fewer staff attended conferences than we had anticipated. We have things like the scholarship, which was overspent by $15,000. We don't charge the taxpayers for that because that's money that comes from donations. So we don't put that in our budget, and that's why it looks like it's a loss there. Okay. If you go to page 24, you'll see the building operations section on top. Utilities was overspent by $8,900. We ended up spending a lot more on electric to heat the building due to the HVAC failures. Fortunately, we were able to make up for that in the insurance line. Premium increases were a lot less than anticipated. We were able to save some money. But we did, as you know, have a lot of HVAC repairs, and that, blew our budget line for building repair and maintenance. As far as capital outlay goes, you can see that furniture and equipment was, a little bit overspent, but the big culprit there was building improvements. That's all the improvements we made to the geothermal project, which we do not budget for. We didn't charge the taxpayers for that. We had anticipated on a loss, so to speak, to take that money out of our surplus. Okay. There was some, over expenditures and under expenditures in the debt service section. That was really a budgeting thing between the principal and interest, but in total, it, at the end of the day, it was, not a significant variance at all. So our expenses, due to those things that we didn't budget for, like the geothermal work and the, scholarships and all that kind of stuff, was overspent by $1.3 million. We did make up for some of that on the revenue side, but we still had a loss for the year of $1,179,000. Again, due to the geothermal stuff primarily. So I think you are aware of all that, and that was it as fast as I could do it. Wasn't quite double speed, but.
So since this is my first time through this process, can you help me understand the distinction between when you say we're not charging the taxpayer for that?
So in other words, when you put a budget together, you list out how much money you think you're going to spend, right? You subtract out from that the revenue, like whether it be lost book reimbursements or investment income. And then what's left is what you raise taxes for, right? So if we come up with a budgeted amount of expenses, for example, of $1 million, and we think we're going to have $200,000 of revenue, the difference, $800,000, is what we charge the taxpayers for taxes, right?
You mean in the upcoming?
No, in the
budget?
current fiscal year, when we put together, so Kelly now has already prepared the 2027 budget, right? She proposed it, I'm sure, to you, and she says, this is what I think we're gonna spend. We're short, but this is how much we need to raise taxes for. Taxes are generally the difference between what you think you're gonna earn and what you think you're gonna spend. You didn't include in those expenditures things like the HVAC project, the geothermal project, and the scholarships and things like that, because one, the geothermal project, you plan on using some of your surplus, you didn't want to charge the taxpayers for it. It would have made your taxes go up exponentially, and you probably would have failed the budget anyway, had you taxed them for it. But things like scholarships were donations that we had received in prior years for that purpose. So we weren't going to charge them, so we didn't include it in our budget. Otherwise, it would have made our taxes go up.
Okay, so the budget is really what we're always tying that to what tax revenues.
Right, so in other words, you're planning on how much you're gonna spend. Subtract the money that you think you're gonna generate, which is very little, it's really
Right.
interest income, and the difference is what you charge the taxpayers. Okay. So that's, and it's a little bit more complicated than that, because you could have included some of these items in the budget, but then your taxes would have been more than, I don't know, I forget what your tax increase was.
When
It
you
was
say
about,
taxes, you're saying how much we're gonna raise from taxpayers.
right. Right, and you don't really want that to be 10% increase, because they'll vote it down, so you're trying to manage.
Pierce the cap.
Right, you'll pierce the tax cap, so you're trying to manage what that increase is. And, so it's both sides of the equation you're trying to balance.
And why do you say 10% as, are you just throwing?
I'm just
that
saying,
out
use that
there?
as an example, like that would never pass, the taxpayer, so you're trying to get it down to an
Well,
amount.
inflation is 6%, why wouldn't it pass?
Well, maybe it would, every district is different. You can certainly attempt that. The risk that you run is that if the budget doesn't pass, then you revert to the prior year's budget. So you're taking a calculated gamble.
That you wouldn't get any increase.
Because the increase, once you vote an increase in, the taxpayers vote an increase in, what's nice about it is it stays in effect forever. So taxpayers are generally reluctant if they see a 10% increase. It's not just this year, it's every year you're gonna keep
Okay, for the
raising.
budget, the vote is for a percentage increase over the prior year's budget.
Well,
It's not a dollar.
it's a fixed amount, but that fixed amount is represented by a percentage, right? So if we raised 1 million last year, for example, and we're raising it by 10%, we're gonna get 1,100,000 this year. And that's what they're voting on, the 1,100,000. But they will look at the percentage and they'll look at the neighboring areas and then they'll may question, why are you raising the taxes so much? To which
Who looks at it? I
You may
mean,
have-
Yeah.
how is it submitted? Who is it submitted to?
well,
What are we,
Our
budget?
Yeah.
So we're gonna review the budget tonight. It's under new business. But generally speaking, the budget, the finance committee meets and reviews the budget. And then it goes forward to the board as a whole. This year, we're running a little late because I didn't have all my tax payments in from school and I was waiting on our tax-based growth factor from New York State because we are a December fiscal year. But generally speaking, the board approves the budget and then it goes out to the taxpayers. And that's when you get that newsletter with the budget statement in it in September. And that's what you're voting on. So,
So it doesn't go through the town at all or the
No.
village? No?
no,
Okay.
because it is the library's budget vote, right? So we put forward the budget, and then the taxpayers vote yes or no on our budget, just like the school puts forward a budget and you vote on the school budget. Without getting too deep in the weeds, because this really has nothing to do with the audit. We, as an association library, cannot levy taxes on our own, so it is actually the school district clerk who holds our vote for us, but they only hold the vote for us. That means they, basically like count the ballots and say, yes, it was approved, no, it's not. They don't have any say. It is up to the Board of Trustees to put forward a budget. With regards to what I was saying about what the budget is, we'll just use $1 million as the example again. If in 2025 or 2026, the community approved a budget of $1 million, it is $1 million until you put forward another vote to increase that. So in 2027, if you went up 10%, it would be $1,100,000. If that got voted down, we would revert, we would still pull in $1 million worth of tax dollars. That makes sense? Okay.
And then this note, committed for capital improvements on the balance sheet. Where does that stand as of?
So with that, you have, basically the fund balance section represents what you own, right? So if you look at your assets, you see your assets are primarily cash and investments, right? Subtract out what you owe, and the difference is your fund balance. So it's like your cash that you have available to spend, okay? So what you're communicating to the taxpayers is how you plan on using that money, because if your unassigned fund balance, which is your rainy day money, that 438,000, gets to be too big, this goes back to the vote, right? If the library had $50 million in the bank and your annual budget is only 3 million, they're not going to increase your taxes. What do you need money for?
No, just hang on, excuse me. So committed for capital improvements, is that money actually allocated strictly for
Yeah,
capital
yes.
improvements?
Yes.
And
So
it sits where?
it's part of the cash that you have in the bank. It's what the board has earmarked. Because if it wasn't committed, it would be unassigned. So the board's made a motion to move it out of unassigned and earmarked it for capital improvements.
Okay, so
So that's
now.
not for an annual spend, that's just an account.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And it's available to be moved into unassigned.
Well, it's available to be spent on really anything you want, but what you're telling the public is you think you're going to spend your extra money on capital improvements. Right now, that's what your plan is. If your plan was to change and say, for example, you wanted to buy the building next door because you wanted to make a parking lot, you could say committed for land acquisition. It's really a communication tool as to what, you're telling the public, yes, we have $3 million, that's a lot of cash, this is what we think we're gonna be spending it on. Is what that means. And you can change that for anything you want.
Do you know how long it's been at 3 million?
Probably several years.
It was like the first thing we did with you, so probably about 3 years, 4 years, 3 years.
Something like that.
Okay, thank you.
And that was an audit recommendation, 3 or 4 years ago, was that all of that money was unassigned. And it was the recommendation that we earmark it for something so that it didn't look like we were just sitting with cash.
Right.
Any other questions for Al? Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And if you think of anything else after I leave, then just go through Kelly and I'll be happy to answer her email or phone call.
And while Alan's here, we're gonna discuss it later, but he's going to be doing a Q&A trustee training at South Hope Library. He moved you from Riverhead to South Hope
Okay.
on that August.
Put that in.
Is it
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock at the South Hope Free Library on August 5th. So if there's any lingering questions marinating, you have a second chance.
Today is August 5th.
So we have to take a vote to
Like a
approve his
Wednesday.
report. Should I do it now with?
You can do it now unless, you want Al to leave and you wanna
No.
talk about it.
Is there any
Talk about
further?
Al.
We can talk about Al too.
Okay, does anybody
I have
have any
lots to
further
say.
question or discussion about the auditor report? Can somebody please make a motion to approve the annual audit?
I'll make a motion to approve the
I'll second. Good.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The report is approved. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Now I can go right out that.
You can go right out.
Okay.
Will not.
The nearest exit.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
Thanks, all right, have a good one.
You too.
Okay, has everybody had the opportunity to review the minutes from our June 17th meeting?
Yes.
Okay, can somebody please make a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on June 17th?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any opposed? Okay. Minutes from June 17th have been approved. Okay, on to report from the Friends.
Report from the Friends. So the Friends take a little summer hiatus. However, they did come and stuff envelopes, and so renewal letters went out to their membership. And you should be getting those in the mail this week if you have not already.
Okay,
Okay.
on to Treasurer's report.
All right. It's the treasurer's report for month of June 2026. We have our operating accounts totaling just over $2 million. Preferred savings at Morgan Stanley is 501,423. And we will be, well, anyway, that's different. Never mind. Our Connect ones at just over 507, and our other current assets are 47,000. Our total investments right now are 2,184,745. And you can see, so our total assets are at 5,314,413, and you can see for comparison a year ago below that. In terms of financial activity, we issued checks to our 3 scholarship recipients for the Pathway to scholarships. We paid our mortgage and we have broken below $3 million owed on the mortgage, so celebrate. We did receive another tax levy payment in the amount of $1,214,276. And you can see how that got divided up in the budget as usual. Total expenses for June were 346,000 and change, which is a little low, but there was, because of the calendar and the way vacations fell and things, That did not include the monthly credit card or health insurance expenses, in that figure. As of the month of June, we're halfway through the year, our total expenditures are falling in right around 50%, so, and that's despite buildings and grounds. Reporting 119% of the budget spent, so good job for everyone here. Payroll details are here. We did have a couple new hires, which are represented in those numbers, and that's all.
Do you generate this report?
Yes, so I do it, well, I come in once a month and sit with Kelly and go through all the statements and sign some checks, and then I do the report, and then I try to get it back to her in a timely manner. Sometimes life gets in the way, but
It's a big task, and we thank you for
you're
doing
welcome,
it.
very welcome.
Someone's got to do it. Does anyone have any questions about the treasurer's report? Okay, that said, can somebody make a motion to approve the financial report, the warrants, and the payroll warrants, all in one fell swoop?
Motion to approve the financial report, the warrants and payroll warrants.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Financial or treasurer's report is approved. The director's report.
Right. So, wait, the poodles, I was busy. So first thing I do want to share is we did get a lovely handwritten thank you from one of our scholarship winners. The other two did thank us by email, but this one is officially to the board. So it says, "Dear John Jermain Library Foundation, thank you so much for the $3,600 Pathway to Success Scholarship. The name feels fitting. My path has taken some unexpected turns, but every stop has been intentional, from hands-on training at BOCES to preparing for my EMT certification. I've learned to build a road that works for who I am. This fall, I will be taking the next steps at Touro University, where I will be studying diagnostic sonography. Your investment in a student like me means a great deal. I won't take it for granted. With sincere gratitude, Thomas Liu."
Nice.
That is our correspondence for. Okay. It's not often I write a 2-page report of what's been done, but we had a lot going on as we prepped for summer. So as you can see, we've been decorating with dinosaurs. Our beautiful dinosaur window art is a combination of work by Eva and Randall. So they did a great job helping us unearth a story and really lock into that dinosaur theme. Our spice of the month was featured on the chamber social media, which was fun. And we're busy and we're humming, and it's great. We received some free furniture from our colleagues at Copay. So we have some new chairs upstairs, which have sort of like little arm desks, which is nice. I did thank Ken Miller, who's the director there, for having the forethought to pick furniture that matches the color scheme in our building. He said, "No problem, I'll catch you next time too." And then we also put a proper table in the workroom on the main floor next to reference, as opposed to, we had like 2 teardrop shaped tables that sort of came together that came out of the children's room. So we've really sort of professionalized that space. And then because sharing, we got some free furniture from Copay, so we gave some free furniture to Hampton Bays, and their children's department is going to be using those tables. So we're very excited that we're able to, use the tools and the skills given to us by the Sustainable Libraries Initiative, and make sure that, when we get rid of furniture, it doesn't end up in a dumpster. It ends up gaining life somewhere else. We also, at the request of one of our teens, got a fun cozy armchair up by our teen room. It's sort of a little bit of an egg-shaped kind of chair, and the teens are really loving it. It spins, so like it's fun to see them like curl up in it and then spin it towards the wall so we can't see them. They're usually just reading a book. I do peek over to make sure, they're still there. Like I said, Spice of the Month was featured in the chamber. Al was on site to do the audit. The Friends kicked off their annual membership. We got 2 generous donations, one from Jackie Brody to the annual appeal, and another from the Women Family Foundation for $1,500 at the request of Jade Natanya Ullman. Strategic Policy and Strategic Planning met to review our governance policies and strategic plan progress. I'm working with the new district clerk with regards to our public notices, which have been finalized, and our petitions, which have been finalized and translated into Spanish. They will be available starting on Monday, July 27th at 10 a.m. So if you are up for re-election, Lisa and Megan are, and you wish to continue your service to the board, you can pick up your petition on the 27th. I'm trying to think. Thank you all for attending the trustee training on artificial intelligence. As a result, we put together an AI task force to discuss AI in libraries, specifically our library. What does use of AI look like? How do we feel about it? What's the best way we can teach our community how to use it responsibly, what are the pitfalls, what are the good things about it. We sort of see it as similar to when libraries had to teach everyone how the internet works, and Google and what is this thing. It's sort of the same thing, right? Something Nick had said is it's not going away. So how do we provide information about this tool and use of this tool? So that's really interesting. And I mentioned it before, but Al will be at Southwold Library, which is my home library, on Wednesday, August 5th at 6 p.m. to do a Q&A on fiduciary responsibility, and is looking for questions ahead of time. So at least we have somewhere to kick off. After an aggressive storm blew through South Harbor 4th of July weekend, Ellie and I came up here on Sunday to deal with issues with our server. The battery backup, which powers the server and every outlet in the IT office / server closet, chose that day to die. And so Ellie and I came in, we managed to plug everything in to other outlets. Thankfully, we kept those historic windows, and that office is butts up against the local history office. And so we were able to run the cords through the window into the outlets that worked. So we had some things that were down, but now everything is back up, and we are working through the process of purchasing an additional battery backup, or not an additional, a new one, which takes some time. But until then, our friends at G. Craig were able to wire everything into.
What's the lifespan of battery backup?
Like 10 years. 10 years.
6 storms and a
Yeah.
hurricane.
It was
Yeah.
funny because it was something that right before Ellie went on family leave, we were discussing that it was about time for us to start looking into replacing this. So it was something that was on our radar. We thought we had a little more time, but we're working on it. I also started having a conversation with G. Craig and their sister company Back Online, who takes care of our generator, to discuss what is the ability for us to add some of what is on that server rack to our generator. So if power goes out, we can maintain things like phone and internet, which are important. So our generator is undersized for our building. My guess is because it had to go on the roof, and we probably had to fall within certain size parameters. And so our generator can't get any more powerful because we're sort of stymied by the size that it is. But one of the conversations we sort of had was like, we could do with less lights if it meant we could have internet. So once I have more information about that, buildings and grounds will meet, and we can have a conversation about what that costs and what
They're
that's
making
gonna look like.
generators smaller now with more capacity.
Yes, in theory, in practice, we'll see. And then we have to get it up in there.
Yeah,
It appears like they put the generator up there and then built the room around it. So, it's also getting it in there. Everything's, it's a puzzle, right? Like,
Mhm.
you can do anything, you just have to figure it out. So there is that. In order to have better control and accounting of money collected through our service desks, we are actually going to put everything through Square now. So we have Square registers that we're going to be deploying. And that just makes life easier, really, for Wanda and I to make sure we're reconciling the small amounts of cash that come in. Right now, it's sort of, we use sort of like envelopes, and it's cute and it's funny, but if we do everything through Square, then Square prints out a report, and it's just better fiscal oversight. We're continuing to fine tune the HVAC system. We're currently working on issues with humidity. We believe that it is related to software programming. So, we're getting the band together, the folks from Train, our engineer, the controls guys, everyone to sort of figure out where in the very sophisticated system we might be askew. So stay tuned on that. We also have a small list of punch list items for the project that is going to be taken care of by Belfour on Thursday of next week is what we're tentatively scheduled for. And that came about as we had Lizardos come out, our engineer, to do their last check over of all the work done, and they had a list of things they wanted Belfour to just tweak. Let's see, whole big paragraph on library advocacy. So NYLA is currently working on its legislative priorities. Once I have those, I will share them with you. I'm also waiting on information about the Tell Congress Not to Defund Libraries campaign. As you know, IMLS funding was restored for this year, but it is again on the chopping block on a federal level. And not in the federal budget. So we want to make sure that we continue to fund IMLS and let our federal representatives know that we would like that to be funded. In our case, that is the NOCHA. We also have a bunch of ALA priorities, one of which is show up for E-rates. We benefit from E-rate funding. E-rate funding helps defray the cost of high-speed internet for us. We have fiber wire. We get at least a little bit more than somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 of E-rate funds to pay for our internet. And we would like to keep getting that money. It's important money. Let's see. We also, I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I'm mentioning it again, Thursday, August 13th at the Middle Country Public Library Center Reach branch, which is their main branch. Representatives, Governor Hochul's Suffolk County representatives will be on site to see how important the libraries are to Suffolk County, to New York State, why we need to be funded, listen to some of the things we have to say. And one of the things we are trying to do as a county is have as many bodies in that room as possible, but also as many bodies in that room as possible who are not paid to be there, right? So like, we could send librarians, we could send library directors, yes, we are voters, yes, we are constituents, but it's nice to also see library trustees. So if any trustees would like to go to that event, please let me know so I can make sure we're signed up for it. And that is Thursday, August 13th at 12:30. That's really it with regards to my report. The statistics, as you can see, Our numbers are really good. They're way up in June as compared to May, and they're pretty consistent with what we've had going on in 2025.
Oh, that's good. Okay, has everybody had the opportunity to look at the personnel report?
Yes.
So I need somebody to make a motion to approve the personnel report.
Motion to approve the personnel.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Any opposed? The board approves the personnel report. Okay, on to committees. Personnel?
Yes,
Mhm.
we met last time.
Oh, that was in May.
Right, so we don't
Right,
have
so
a,
no meeting this time, this
Okay.
period.
okay. Finance,
We did meet, it was a shallow meeting, it was me and Diane, and Kelly, but we took a look at the budget. And went over some of our, didn't we?
We did.
I was like,
We
why
did,
am I
we
looking
went
at
over
that?
the budget. We also talked about the investment ladder and the reinvestment.
Yeah,
And then we also, I guess you could talk about this now, we talked about Morgan Stanley and moving some of that money.
yeah, so we reached 500,000 in Morgan Stanley, and therefore anything over that amount is not, give me the word, Kelly.
FDIC.
FDIC insured. So we are taking the committees. Well, we did it. We are taking $100,000 and we bought is it a CD with
A
Wells
CD.
Fargo? Just so it could be insured, still keep making money, and it was a pretty good percentage of it. It was like,
3.8.
it was really close. Yeah, it was like, almost 4%. So, which is good for these days. So that's what we've done with the Morgan Stanley account to keep all the money that's in there safe and keep our money working for us.
For a while.
For a while.
Okay. How long?
Well, we moved $100,000 into a CD, so we've
What, is
got,
that 6 months?
off the top, I wanna say it's 12 months.
Okay,
It's either 9 or 12, I think it's 12.
sorry, I didn't bring my notes.
It's in, we'll
Yeah.
talk about it in July.
Yeah, that's
The
why,
specifics
when I
of
was doing my
July.
treasure report, I was going to go over time.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a
Um,
July, I don't know.
I don't wanna give you the wrong information,
Yeah.
but I can log into Morgan Stanley, after the meeting and send it out.
We probably emailed it to me.
I probably did.
Or no, you texted it. All right, well, I can interact
Okay.
some on the next. You might find it.
Buildings and grounds.
Buildings and grounds not meet.
Okay. Policy and long range planning.
We did meet, and we went over the strategic plan. Not looking to change too much at this point. This is something we will probably do in the future. But noted things that have been concluded and done and things that are still ongoing. I don't know if we want to go through all of them.
But it was in the packet, the board packet, so everybody had a chance. to
Yeah,
look
you
at
have a
that.
packet, I think,
You
where
had
some
any
of the
questions
things,
to
yeah,
that?
some of the things said ongoing and some of the.
Yeah,
things
there's
that-
nothing remarkable. I mean, we're on schedule, on task, and
Yeah,
I did just wanna make 2 notes, and I did make it in the packet that I sent out to all of you. One of the things that the policy and strategic planning committee did discuss was instead of adopting a John Jermain specific anti-bigotry statement,
Oh, yeah.
we are gonna put forward at the August meeting, adoption of ALA's anti-bigotry
Right.
statement, much like we adopt their Bill of Rights,
Mhm.
Annually. And then the other thing we discussed was, one of the things we wanted to do was hire a social worker. But the Suffolk Cooperative Library System is looking to put a social worker program in place, which would potentially put a social worker in our building at
That's
some
like a
point.
floater.
Like a
Yeah.
floater, yeah, for the
floater,
county or a
a
couple
spare.
for the county. So like, you know, like a shared service, but it's a person. So stay tuned on that. So-
And interesting that all of our sustainability goals were basically completed.
we did really great with
So that
sustainability.
was really good.
I have that figure for you. So it was 100,000 in, at 4.1% for 12 months. So, yeah.
Okay,
So strategic planning, when are we going to have discussions about an AI strategy for this library that is both comprehensive with short-term goals for staff and midterm goals for patrons? This should be a priority, and it is not a next year agenda item. So when are we going to have that conversation and begin the strategic planning process for that?
For AI,
Yes,
for staff development. all that.
staff development and patron in programming.
Well, it's also a question of strategic plan and as a library, how we view AI, you know, I mean, how we're gonna handle this baby, you know, I mean.
so I mean, I don't wanna, so I did share, with everyone, one of the policies that, Nick had said was very good and suggested we take a look at, and it is a very good policy, is Sayville's, AI policy.
Yeah.
Which I did send out to the policy committee. When the policy committee comes back together to review sort of the governance policies, I'd like us to take a good, strong look at that as well. To put together for a first read and adoption at, some point in the very near future.
So are we setting up an imminent policy committee meeting to review the AI policy and bring it back to us at the next meeting?
Yeah, so policy meets, is gonna meet before the next meeting because we'll have our governance policies for you all to review. So what we generally do with policies is we try to do a first read, so everybody can read through them. And then we adopt the following month. So if the policy committee feels like they can commit to, looking at the AI policy during our next meeting, which will happen before the next month. And feels comfortable putting forward the AI policy for our first read. That is certainly something we can do for August with adoption in September. Which sort of creates some really nice guardrails for use of AI and AI products for the staff. Right now, we do have a task force. The task force is different departments, different library employees with different levels of familiarity with AI and using AI and different personal feelings towards AI. We just had our first meeting. Remember, we just saw Nick 2 weeks ago. The committee met. The task force has work to do, and then we're going to come back that first week of August. We are already looking at training opportunities and professional development opportunities available to us through ALA, LILRIC, Suffolk Cooperative, NYLA. The NYLA conference is coming up. We're waiting for the program listings to come out for that, which I believe will feature artificial intelligence-based programs pretty heavily. So we are looking at professional development opportunities. All of that being said, in terms of programming out to the public, I've already spoken to Anthony, who is our emerging technologies librarian, and to Nancy, who does our adult programming, about beefing up our programs related to artificial intelligence, and teaching individuals how to use it practically, but then also sort of for the last, I would say, year and a half, we've really been doing what is an intro to different types of AI. I've asked them to look at, starting in the fall and in the winter, really taking that next step and doing some hands-on programming. We talked about like a series where it's like, let's chat with ChatGPT, let's chat with Claude, let's chat with Gemini, where people have the ability to come in and do hands-on work with those different services. So we're moving ahead in terms of strategic planning. If you're looking for board level strategic planning, that's certainly something we can look at doing via a retreat, if that's something we want to do. And if that's something we want to do before the end of the year, please let me know, because it'll take some time to get that together. But that is up to you all. You know, from a library operations, day-to-day operations standpoint, what we're working on as a team and a staff here is really training opportunities, talking about it as not just with the librarians or the professionals in the building, but with all of the library staff, getting people up to speed, and then also beefing up our programming at this time. And that's sort of the goal through the end of the year, because it's July. And so that's where we're at the moment.
September will be here before.
September will be here before we know it. So, and that's where like working on programming now for the fall.
So out of the goals and objectives and the strategic plan, there's nothing that merits updating as it relates to our AI strategy for internal or external, or something more spelled out than continue to be kind, reliable, and approachable. That we don't want to take this opportunity to hone in and modify this.
Well, I think basically what you're asking is, can we amend the strategic plan that we drew up?
Well, that's
Tuesday?
part of it. It's
Yeah.
like we've just come out of this training. We've taken care of, you know, the HVAC, which has occupied a tremendous amount of time and resources. We've just come out of this training about AI. We already have the policy component that you're presumably comfortable with, which Nick said is sort of the underpinning before implementation. So you have the policy, or when are we going to talk about implementation?
Or how does it relate to the current strategic plan? Can
Right.
we amend
Well, that would be implementation,
Yeah.
should be incorporated into the strategic plan, right? And our goals and objectives as it relates to an AI policy. I mean, I think these are really important things to call out to the board, the institution, and the community.
But interestingly enough, it wasn't even a thought or
A thing.
question.
It was,
That's
yeah.
right.
So like when
That's
this plan was done
nice.
in 2024, what was really the deep concern of libraries was your First Amendment rights, right? And freedom of speech and freedom of information. And we were really, you know, like book banning and things like that. And then also Sustainable Libraries Initiative. You know, that's sort of the thing when you're doing a 3-year plan, right? You don't necessarily plan for the thing. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You know, in terms of putting forward a strategic plan for AI use. Again, I know, you know, I've said what we're doing here. We're going sort of as fast as we can. We have to walk before we run. You know, I can jog if we need to. I can jog and then run. But really for me right now, our task force has met once, right? So the next meeting of the task force is to really sort of hone in on our operational plan as a staff, right? And so, I mean, I don't know how you as a board want to move forward. I don't know if if the policy committee wants to discuss an AI strategic plan. I don't know if you guys want to have a retreat
I think a
about it.
retreat is worth We're doing,
Okay.
I mean, we haven't done one in like 3 years.
We have not, and so.
Was-
We sort of,
We're
we haven't
doing-
done a retreat since the requirement for professional development came in,
Right.
and so that sort of professional development. Okay.
Yeah, I just have a concern, if this was adopted in 2024, it's like saying, this breakthrough technology that, we're gonna continue on the same path when clearly we're at an inflection point where, whatever we thought in 2024 in some ways can't be.
Well, I think it's good to speak about it. You know, philosophically as an institution and all those things that he brought up. But like Kelly says, we don't know, we don't know. So once AI starts becoming something for the haves and not the have-nots, I think just owning the space that we are ready to catch a ball and sort of work with it and figure out after we have the philosophical conversations is like all we can really do, I think, beyond policies and that type of thing, because
So I mean, I think the Policy and Strategic Planning Committee is probably gonna meet twice before the August meeting. Maybe not once, because we've got a couple of things to do, hooray.
Right.
But I think we can start there, we can look at that policy, like I said, we have the task force and they have their assignment and we're gonna look forward from there. And then I think things will fall into place quickly after that,
Mhm.
but I think at this point, sort of like 2 weeks out from our trustee training with Nick, I think we're moving as quickly as we can. I think we're moving quicker than other libraries are. And we can sort of start to hone in on what you as a board think AI means to libraries, and what our plan should be. I think that will come out of a retreat, and I look forward to those conversations. And, we talk a lot in libraries about AI. Librarian to librarian or library director to library director. And so I think having those conversations and having this task force and having more of a staff conversation about what it means to our library, what it is our patrons are looking for, is interesting, like youth services, for example. What our community wants is really for our library to a certain extent to be very analog, right? They want their kids to come in and have experiences that are away from the screen. They want them to be doing art and books and music. And so, but we see with our adult population, there is this interest and need for exploration of technology or digital you could go as wide as digital literacy, right? Like, how do we, use this technology? How do we use computers? What is this? So I think we are sort of where we're at the moment, but I will look to find somebody to do a retreat. We'll get that done sooner rather than later. And then I'll throw out some dates to all of you to see what works best. And then we'll also look at, like I said, once the task force comes back together, the first week in August, which is really only 2 weeks away, I think I'll have a more, a more concrete plan.
well, it's a sign of a
Staff.
successful staff training.
But
This is a sign of successful training.
yeah, it is.
So congratulations on having it. Thank
Yeah.
you for doing it.
Thank you.
Again, I am specifically looking for patron engagement and provision of programming for, so whatever comes out of the task force, it's gotta include patron engagement and patron programming and what a timeline and what that's gonna look like. And it can't be something happening 12 months from now. Thank you.
Well, everything we do here is for patrons.
Exactly, exactly. And the haves and the have-nots, that this is what a direly needed community service.
Okay, all righty. Anything else, Robin, Dale?
No, that's it for now.
We covered it all. Okay, Nash Park met, but it was the same time and place as our trustee training, and they did not provide a agenda, so I have no idea what they did at the meeting. Okay, on to old business.
The HVAC, our beautiful HVAC. So I did mention it sort of during my report, we're working on the humidity issue, which is gonna have to bring in our engineers. And then it fell for us down to their punch list stuff, which is great. So it's currently working, so we're happy about that. And then with regards to trustee training, we talked about AI, we have our plan moving forward. And again, as I said it twice, I might as well say it a third time, Al Pastor will be at the Southwold Free Library on August 5th, at 6 p.m. to do a Q&A on fiscal responsibilities.
But all of us satisfied our 2 hours of trustee
Yes,
training.
yes.
Like,
Yes, but please do more.
I'm never gonna make it to Southwold
You're
by
never gonna
6
take
o'clock.
Southwold by 6 o'clock.
No way.
There's a lot to
so-
learn about being a trustee.
Yeah.
And continue, there is.
there is.
I mean, this is my 5th year and it's like a new day every day. Okay, new business,
New
the
business,
draft budget.
the draft budget. So,
Everybody, I hope, had an opportunity to look at that in the packet.
Mhm.
Mhm.
all right, so, I have a couple of updates, since I wrote this draft proposal. So what I'm proposing is a $107,484 increase, which is 3.99%, which will fall below the tax cap by $1,097. I got confirmed from the New York State Comptroller's Office late yesterday afternoon via email what our tax base growth factor is. So that number is correct. And so there we are. I'm still confirming with the school what our final tax payment will be. We're shy about $1,300 from them right now. But sometimes there's a little bit of extra that we get just because people's houses get reassessed and things like
Sorry,
that.
what was the actual tax rate growth factor? What
The
was
actual
amount?
tax base, the tax based growth factor is 1.105. And that's, so for those of you who are not familiar with the tax cap, other than it's 2%, right? The tax cap is never 2%. It's actually a bigger formula than there's more that goes into it than that. It's the tax base growth factor, fact changes things. And so you're allowed to go up more than 2% if, your tax base grows. And so, ours is more than 1. For most places, it's usually a solid 1. During COVID, the East End libraries had like huge tax base growth factors because there was such a boom in population out here. And buying of houses and those things. So ours is over 1, which means we can have more money than 2%. Which is sort of something you hear about when you look at the school budgets and you're like, hey, how is that under the tax cap? But it's over 2%. It's because 2% is a nice talking point for politicians, but the reality is it's different. So that's where we're at there. So you're looking at 107.75. The budget once again includes pulling from our reserves for operational costs, but at a slightly lower amount. We've been doing 260 this year at 245. I just want to note, and Al sort of spoke to this a little bit, we haven't had to pull this money in previous years because we've had unanticipated gifts, unanticipated saving, and a unanticipated interest on financial investments, which have, kept us from having to draw down on those reserves. I do not anticipate any surprising vacancies, requests, library babies, moving forward, and we will be, we will have that project paid off. So we will have less money invested. And now that the chair of the Fed has changed, we can sort of assume that the rates that they've been telling us are gonna go down and gonna go down quickly for the last 2 years might actually go down. So we'll see. In order to stay under the cap, we're gonna use our reserves, until it can ultimately be absorbed in the 2030 budget when the mortgage is paid off at the end of 2029. So what does this mean for you as a taxpayer? If your home is assessed at $1 million, your taxes will go up approximately $14.43 for the year, which is less than the cost of a hardcover book.
Paperback book.
Less than a cost of a paperback book. As compared to last year, where we went up $17.99, and in 2024 we went up $20.35. So things to just take note of. You're looking at a small reduction in investment income as a result of HVAC and anticipated drops in interest rates. You're also looking at a reduction in funds pulled from reserves. In terms of expenses, you're looking at a small overall increase of 4.5%. This includes a 4% raise to employees, which is what we have historically done for the last 5 years. It also reflects the addition of 3 part-time employees hired but not budgeted for in 2026, and the anticipated retirement of 2 full-time employees. We are with only one of those positions being replaced. And then also we quietly expanded our operating hours on Tuesdays till 7 p.m. during the summer, and we plan to continue that.
After hours.
After hours.
Right, and after hours.
John Jermain Library after dark.
Wine cellar right here.
We do some after hours programs, which are a lot of fun. The teens love when we do like a lock-in after hours. I think the summer lock-in, the end of summer is like laser tag, something like that.
Sounds like needs trusty oversight of that thing.
Laser tag, do you want to be here for laser tag? I was like, so do you want to participate in laser tag? Should the trustee retreat just be laser tag?
Give me an idea.
There we go.
Right.
We can have like pro AI versus anti AI trustee laser tag. Whoever wins makes the plan.
I'm a camper.
So what you're also looking at is an overall decrease in library materials to reflect actual spending. The majority of that decrease is really in ebooks. So as you all know, our digital collection of materials, our audiobooks and our ebooks primarily through Overdrive is part of a consortium-wide collection. And so all 56 libraries in Suffolk County have say in how much money we put towards that. And the bigger libraries, Sag Harbor was an early adopter of that. And so Sag Harbor always paid more than like all the other libraries. We were an outlier. And that has changed. We're now like average use compared to the other libraries. And so our spending has sort of stabilized, but a lot of the larger libraries are like, oh no, we can't afford this anymore because our patrons are using it. And so when increases were, 10-15%, we were paying 10-15%. And now the increases are just slower. They're really only increasing by like 5%. So what we're looking at is less budgeted spending for ebooks because that's what the county is feeling like they're doing. Or as I said, my colleagues are cheap. That's not it. They have to budget for their libraries too. I always feel like it's death, taxes and ebooks, right? So that is what you're looking at in material spending. Library operations, you're looking at an overall increase of about $11,000 with the lion's share of that money going towards library programming. One of the things that was requested as part of our community survey and our strategic plan was to increase library programming, especially for adults. I think, as Lori has very smartly pointed out, and what we have done as a result of the AI training that we did with Nick Tansey, we're looking to bolster our adult programming and our adult programming budget. And so that's where the lion's share of the money is going. If you looked at the budget versus year to date, you will see that we're blowing the adult program budget line. Again, we just, people really love coming to programming here. So there is that. With regards to buildings and grounds, what we're looking at is a relatively flat increase. And that extra $1,500 reflects actual spending on garbage pickup. We are estimating that utilities will flatten now that we are not using electric heaters to heat the building. We have an HVAC system that is energy efficient and operating properly, and using a normal amount of electricity, whereas the geothermal system was, in theory, more environmentally friendly, but in practice, because it was failing, was not energy efficient at the least. And that's really what you're looking at for the budget. I'm trying to think. Are there any questions? With regards to that, you're under the cap.
Okay, any questions about the budget?
What's the worst thing that happens if next year you go for a budget about that goes through the cap?
That goes through the cap. So if the board chooses to exceed the cap, we never pierce, it's too stabby. If the board would choose to put forward a budget that pierces the cap, it's really about communication to the public as to why we're exceeding the cap and what that money will be used for. So I always use the example of, like, if we wanted to extend our hours, right? If we wanted to be open until 8 p.m. at night, if we wanted to be open, like 9 to 5 on a Saturday, right? That would require additional staff. Staff is the most expensive thing in the library. It's also, I would dare say, one of our greatest strengths is that we have a great team here, and it's those personal connections that make using the library an enjoyable experience. To do that, it would require additional part-time staff. It might require additional full-time staff. And so we would not be able to stay under the cap for that. And it would really just be saying to the public, look, yes, we know we're going out and we're asking you for more than what the tax cap says we can ask you for. However, in return, what you're getting is we're open till 8 p.m. and we can provide more programming after work for individuals to come to. What we can provide for you is additional space for teens to meet after sports to work on their homework, right? Like it's messaging, and then it's, does the community agree with that messaging, and do they see merit in funding that? And if they were to vote down an increase, then the board has two decisions to make. One, they could put forward a second vote.
Put out the same budget again for a second vote.
Put the same budget up again for a second vote.
They
could.
When do you do that? Like, in the next year or? no?
You'd have to do it, you need 45 days for a public notice, so, it would take some finagling, but you could
Late October,
potentially,
November.
if our budget vote's the end of September, the soonest you could do the next vote would be 45 days from that vote, but it would probably be more like,
Yeah.
like 55 or
At the end of
60,
November.
just because you'd have to decide, are we putting up the same thing? Are we putting up something that falls under the cap? Or are we just gonna stay with what our budget is the previous
Does it
year?
work the same way in the school budget? So if it fails, the second vote, the contingency budget is what?
Whatever your tax increase was in the previous year.
Yeah, so the previous
So,
year. It's a risk.
It's a
It's
risk.
a risk you take.
It is a risk you take, you know, and it sort of falls under like. How much above the cap are you comfortable going? How much above the cap do you think the community is comfortable with? I've always sort of feel like it's not worth exceeding the cap for, you know, like $100,000, right? But maybe it's worth exceeding the cap for, you know, like $400,000 or $500,000, right? You gotta sort of look at the numbers, look at what the average increase is. Are you talking about, you know, like, what did I say we were looking at? We were looking at, $14.43, you know? Will people approve $15.43? Would they approve $20.43? It really would be a conversation we would have to have and have
Depends
to
on what
consider.
you're offering also for that
And it depends,
increase
that's,
and
you
how you
can't,
can sell it.
and how you can sell it.
If you had something big and obvious, like, oh, there's an opportunity to buy a blank piece of land right
Right.
across the street.
No, more AI funding. Or
More
AI
AI
funding and funding for small businesses to learn how to use AI in their small businesses, and we need to stay open until 8 or 9
And
o'clock
you know
at
what?
night, and that requires
It-
additional
We
people.
need to find out what AI is going to cost the
Yeah.
library.
And so that's, I
There's a
mean,
lot, there's a lot
There's a lot
of,
of
lot to
variables.
happen.
you know, I can say. With regards to libraries in Suffolk County who have exceeded the cap. All of the libraries have passed those budgets in their communities, even in communities where you wouldn't necessarily think it would pass. But it is about messaging, and it is about saying, yes, it's more money, but here's what you're gonna get for it. And I would just say, I'll use the extra hours, as an example, because that's sort of the easiest one. The best turnout for a library vote, and the best percentage of yes votes we ever got in the time I've spent at the Hampton Library in Bridgehampton was the year we exceeded the cap by a lot. I feel like it was like 9.8%. It was a big chunk, but we extended the hours of the library to be open until 9 o'clock at night, and people turned out and voted for it because they wanted the library to have more hours. They were like, I might not be the ones using it till 9 o'clock at night, but I see value in that. And I understand that that means my taxes are going up, you know.
Well,
I don't know.
another instance, but what if we get to the point, because if we don't know what AI subscriptions are going to cost, it hasn't been determined. Well, what if it's like prohibitively expensive for each individual homeowner to subscribe to an AI service?
Yeah.
So you come to the library, so that could end up an enormous increase in our budget, and maybe that would be a great, but reason why you would, pierce the tab. But if people rather go, I could get it at the library, I don't have to subscribe at home. So, I mean,
And so,
that-
like I
I
said,
mean,
it's
that's the-
really about messaging, and I think, when you look at. When you look at Sag Harbor, I think Sag Harbor shows up for Sag Harbor, and we've seen that with the school district when they've exceeded the cap, where they've put out.
They
votes for
haven't
things.
ever exceeded this cap.
They have
We
never
haven't
exceeded
pierced
the cap.
Yeah.
Only once. So.
Yeah.
Thank
Anyway.
you, Kelly, for that. I really appreciate that clarification, because I don't like this notion that, we just have to toe the line because that's what was done last year, and somehow we're afraid to invest in the, programming and
I
people.
mean, in terms of library service, libraries are sort of the cheapest things. Well, not anymore now that like the historical museum and the Whaley Museum are on there, and Eastville. But libraries are generally a pretty cheap date when it comes to your taxes, right? The school is a big nut, like your town taxes are a big nut. And so when we're talking about increasing library taxes and staying under the cap for, if your home is assessed $1 million, you're looking at $14.43, right? If you were to pierce the cap, and we were to, like, you could exceed the cap and your taxes could go up $20, and like that extra $6 a year, people might not bat an eye at. It's sort of, it's a conversation for the board to have, and it's a conversation for the finance committee to have when we start talking about the budget for fiscal year 2028. And then, that's.
And
sort
I
of
think
where we're
AI
at.
causes, by then we would probably have some semblance
Yes.
of where we are with that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we need to, are there any other questions about the proposed budget before we take a vote to approve it? Okay, can somebody please make a motion to approve the 2027 fiscal year budget for the library?
I'll make a motion.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have adopted the budget.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for working on that.
Yes.
big deal.
Okay. So let's move on to period for public expression. We do not have an executive session this evening, so it is time to adjourn our meeting at 7:35 p.m.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:35.
1 second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody want to stay?